Now, this is very similar to how I look right now. And here is picture number 2.
That's the COVID picture.
Yeah. So Jillian, maybe you can note some things that you see different on picture number 2 than picture number 1.
Well, of course, the background. So that, and that's a huge thing of we must always be aware of what the background, and this works for presentations and video, but it's the background. It's extremely cluttered. It's a mess. It's too much. I see another thing would be the framing of yourself. You're kind of too close. Your head's getting cut off. It's a weird angle. You're not at eye level. So it looks like, the camera's looking up at you. And what I like to call the witness protection look of having the light behind you instead of the light in front of you, which makes you all in shadow. And we imagine like a crazy little, Darth Vader voice as you speak, so that we don't know that you're actually with the mafia.
Very observant. I am still surprised how many people will have one or more of the challenges that are shown in this picture after more than a year of having to communicate virtually. And I sometimes think if you just could record yourself and then try to look at it through the eyes of someone else. And there are a few factors that I call the big 5 when it comes to your online presence. And I think you mentioned them all. One is camera angle. So the best camera angle typically is pretty much about straight on eye level, sometimes a little bit higher than eye level if you want to like reduce that chin, the little double chin there,
right,
but not super high or super low. And then also with how you frame yourself within the video as well can somewhat be dependent on that camera angle. Then lighting. This one seems to be a continuing problem for a lot of people, and it has been a problem for me because I have an office kind of in the basement, and it has a window on one side, and then my overhead light just makes me look like 10 years older. So I've turned off my overhead light, and my husband, who's an amateur photographer, actually has some, I don't know what they're called. They're big lighting
box lights.
But I learned I can't even have them pointed at me because then it's too much of a glare. So I've played around with lighting a lot. In fact, I have another light. I'm going to turn on here just to show you something. If I can get it to turn. Okay, so I have now a little light in front of me, but I don't usually have it on because here's the problem. And it's more noticeable with a ring light. You see the reflection on my glasses? But if you have that problem, there's 2 things you can do. Number 1, just lower your head a little bit and you can get rid of that reflection. Or you can put the light higher so that you don't get that direct reflection on your glasses. I'm going to turn that off now.
Interesting. I also heard another tip too. You can take the arms of your glasses and you can kind of raise them up a little bit,
and kind of
your
tilt
glasses
them down.
Mine
won't just stay that way. So I've learned actually to have the light be less direct works really well for me. If you are speaking mostly during the day and you have a window that has a shade, you can face the window perhaps and get good lighting. In fact, do you do that? I can't tell. Looks like you might have some studio lights going on.
I'm traveling, so it makes it even more challenging because I don't have any kind of studio or whatever. So everything I'm doing is mobile. So I actually have a ring light, and my ring light collapses, down, and I've just put the ring light right behind my laptop. So
for about the first 6 months, I just used one of these, and I had to put it on a piece of cardboard that I taped to the back of my monitor so I could have it a little bit higher. But
That's
it's like $10 little light from Amazon. They're all over. Not the best though, because it was very bright and I had to elevate it so I didn't get that reflection. So play around with the lighting to try to get the best reflection on you. Then the background, as you pointed out in that second photo, usually people don't have terrible backgrounds, but once in a while, even if a bedroom is neat, I kind of don't like to see a bed in the background.
Oh, I agree.
And,
I agree.
and it just looks like this is too personal.
Yes, you feel like you're intruding.
Yeah, just too personal. The other challenge, because a lot of people like, I don't have a great place, so I'm going to use a virtual background. Like right now, I'm using a virtual background. However, I also have a green backdrop behind me.
So the green screen,
green screen. Yes, it actually goes across the length of my wall. But if you're going to use a virtual background and you do not have a green screen, I will caution you that maybe that's not a good idea. Unless you're very still and don't move very much, you can have the problems, which I'm sure you've seen when people, they turn their head and then their head disappears.
They're like sucked into a void.
Or they'll like raise their fingers to show a count and then like they're missing fingers or something like that. So, and some companies don't want you to use a virtual background. So it works really well if you have a green screen. And if you don't, I would caution you to be careful. I was just at a meeting yesterday where the speaker did not have a green screen, but used a virtual background. And he was also wearing headphones like these. So if I put these on, you can still see my background even with that. But because he didn't have a green screen, around his head was like his actual background. And then there was the virtual background. So it didn't look that great. So just a caution on the background.
Especially with curly hair, because you poof and it doesn't work. It really, curly haired people do not do this. Just move along.
Don't do virtual backgrounds without a green screen, right? But moving on from background, there is clothing. Now, most people make decent clothing choices. Really, you only see from about armpit level up. But do keep in mind that if you want to be professional, you should have at least, a Zoom shirt or something that you can throw on. Like I just threw this jacket on over a black shirt to give a little more professional look. You do have to be careful. I'm going to give you an example. So a couple of weeks ago, I was on a webinar where someone was talking about doing interactive training, and he was doing a great job. However, he was wearing a shirt that had very small vertical stripes. And when it was just him with no slide sharing, it wasn't bad, but I want to show you what it looked like. This is what it looked like when the picture got small and he was sharing his slides.
It's like flashback to the 70s.
Yeah, and and they were moving. It wasn't just a static pattern. It was like this moving pattern. And I thought, that is a lesson for me not to wear small patterns. The last thing was body language. And there's two aspects of body language, really, how you frame yourself and then your facial expressions. Ideally, you will take up the middle portion of the frame with, I like it when the head takes up between 1/3 and 1/2 of the frame and maybe have from armpits up. When it comes to facial expressions, I would say you want to be congruent. I mean, if you're talking about something very somber, you shouldn't smile. But most of the time, most people could have a more pleasant expression on their faces. And I don't know about you, Jillian, but one thing I've noticed as I've gotten older is that my resting neutral face looks a little bit angry. So even when I try to smile more because I find it more engaging, people know I'm not angry if I'm smiling. And I think, smiles make people look more attractive and younger as well. One of the biggest challenges with virtual presentations is making eye contact. And we have to make artificial eye contact in virtual presentations so that the audience feels like we're making eye contact. And what that means is when you are speaking, for the most part, you should look directly into the camera lens.